what gets in the way of our progress? What is it that causes most people to fail? What is the real thing that gets in our way of the dreams that we want to manifest? We all got different stories. Well, I didn't have the resources. Well, I'm too young. I'm too old. Well, I don't have the capital. Well, everybody's got a reason why they're not successful in business or in life. But there's only one reason why, and that is because we'll come up with all the resources that we don't have, the time, the energy, money, the capital, the systems, whatever it is. But the most successful people find the resources because they're resourceful. They figure out what's needed, and they have enough positive emotion to find the answers. Because if you're creative enough, as I said before, you'll find the answer. If you're determined enough, you'll get through the problem. If you care enough for other people, you can get them to care about you and your mission. So the ultimate resources are human emotion, but there's one emotion that is the only reason why people fail. And you know what it is. It's an F word, fear. False evidence appearing real, it's called, or F everything and run is probably more example of what people really think when they look at this thing called fear. But I want to tell you, there's some simple things you can do to get through that fear, because if you don't get through the fear, you're just going to have excuses and stories. And even if you succeed, we all get fearful. The strongest people on earth have a place where they're fearful. I do these seminars for years where I included the fire walk, but before I did that, I used to do skydiving, and I still do some of my coaching crew. But some people are not afraid of fire, but they're scared of hell of heights. Some people, they can jump out of an airplane, but put in front of a group of people to try and speak, and they freak out. We all have fear. It's the human condition, because we all have a 2-million-year-old brain, and it's not designed to make you happy. As I've shared with you, it's designed to make you survive. So it's always looking for what's wrong. It's always casting these images. And think about all the things you've ever worried about or you've been fearful about. How many times you've been worried about something, fearful about it for months or weeks or days, and it never happened? Maybe that's happened many times to you. So I thought maybe we'd do a quick little session on what I've done in my life as a simple system to break through those fears, because I get them too, and I'm obviously a lot less today, and it's not because I'm so smart or strong or courageous. By the way, courage means you're afraid, but you do it anyway. If there's no fear, it's not courage. But it takes less now, just like building a muscle, because I've been doing it. I'm, for 42, 43 years coming up on now. But I want to tell you where it started for me, because you're all far advanced from where the heck I was. It started for me, a cark in the fear, I think, when my mom and dad had these horrendous fights. It was my fourth father. I loved him to death. And their fights were so intense, and my mom got really angry, and she chased him out of the house, and he left. And it was just a really untenable environment, and I loved him. And so then I kind of defended him, and so the next thing I know, my mom went crazy, and she chased me out with a knife. And by the way, my mom wouldn't have killed me, hurt me, stabbed me, but it was a pretty crazy environment to live in. And when I got outside those doors, there was this sense of freedom, like, I'm not going to live this way anymore. And, I wouldn't be who I am without my mom. She was such a shaper of me. She pushed me in crazy-ass ways, and she was such a loving, incredible person. But, anybody gets drugs and alcohol in their system, and they get altered. And she got a little crazy in that area. So she chased me out. I know I'm not going to be dead, but I'm not going to get killed. But I'm like, I'm not going back in that house. I'm 17 years old. It's Christmas Eve. I got to figure out what the hell to do. And I have no core skill sets. I'm still in high school, and I'm working as a janitor to try to help pay for things at the house for my family, because we were very poor. And so I remember I came out of there, and I went walking. It started to rain, and I'm walking outside, and I slept the first night up on a hill, and the rain was so bad I thought I'd get into these trees, and I got wet. And so I finally went to this local Y type place, and I got cleaned up, and then the same thing at school the next day. And I eventually got to where I could live in the laundry room of a friend of mine. And I was depressed. I was so depressed. I just felt like, my brother and sister I loved so much. They're 5 and 7 years younger, and I was apart from my family, and I had no compelling future, and things looked pretty hopeless. And when you're that depressed, your brain could do weird stuff to you. And I was thinking really not good thoughts. I won't go elaborate, but you get the sense. And then something kind of kicked in. And what kicked in was, when I was 17, maybe 6 months before, I had gone working for this man on weekends, just trying to make some more money. And I was helping him to move. He was in the 70s. That's how old I am. In the 70s, he was making money in Orange County, California, buying and selling homes and flipping them. And the economy, the inflation was going crazy and property values were going high. He was making a lot of money. I remember my parents telling me that this guy, used to be such a loser, and now he's so successful. And so when he offered to have me come and help him move, because he was trying to save money on it, and so you make more money on the houses, and I was, I'd gone from 5'1" to 6'2" pretty quick, and I offered to do it, but I really did it because I wanted to make money, but I wanted to pick his brain, even then. And that's how I got exposed to the knowledge business, because over the weekend while I was with them, he said, hey, you're doing a great job. We're going to have lunch one time. And he goes, you're really pushing hard and you're a good worker and you're going to succeed. And I said, well, talk about success. I said, my parents, said you used to be such a loser and now you're so successful. Only kids can say this stuff, right? And he looked at me like kind of shocked. He goes, who said that? I said, well, my dad. He goes, well, he's probably right, to be fair. He said, my whole life changed because I went to this seminar. And I was like, what the heck's a seminar? I didn't even heard the word. He goes, it's where this guy, who's become very successful over decades, takes the best of what he's learned and he teaches you in 3 or 4 hours and he saves you decades into days. You don't have to learn by your own experience. You learn by his and you save time. You cut to the chase and you learn what it takes to be successful. And I paused. I'll never forget. I said, well, I'd like to go to one of those things. Could you get me in? And he said, yeah. And I said, well, will you? And he said, no. I said, you can, but you won't? He goes, yeah, because if I get you in, you won't value it. He said, you got to buy the ticket yourself. And I'll never forget. I said, well, how much is it? He said, $35. It'd be like, $250 today, right? Or $300, whatever it would really be with inflation. And I said, $35? I make $40 a week as a janitor. I said, that's a week's pay to hear some guy talk for 3 or 4 hours. He goes, well, then just go being a janitor, keep doing that the rest of your life and learn by your own experience. And it'll probably take you decades. You may never figure it out, or you can learn what this guy's learned and save yourself a few decades for $35. So I remember I was like, oh my God, this is like the toughest decision. I took a couple days to do it and I finally made the plunge. Thank God I did. Because that all happened about, 8, 9 months before this incident where I'm on my own. It's Christmas Eve and I got to figure out what to do. And so in the midst of this depression, in the middle of this laundry room and feeling sorry for myself, some of the basic things he said kicked into my brain. And one of those first things he said was that the most successful people on earth are readers. He said, leaders are readers. He used to say, don't let a day go by without reading 30 minutes a day. And not today people think 30 minutes is, the stuff that gets pushed to you with clickbait. I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about a book. I'm talking about something with strategies or tools or insights could really change your life. And you got to feed that mind. And it began there. And my life started to change. And so I'd like to walk you through the 5 things I did. And some came directly from Jim Rohn. Some I kind of they came about by reading other people's work and just kind of evolved. They're so simple. But if you're feeling fear stopping you, you're light years from where I was at that stage of my life, feeling far myself living in a laundry room. But I found anybody can change their life doing these simple 5 things. And I still, even today, if I want to get new momentum, I look at this checklist and go, am I doing these enough? So what are they? They're pretty simple. The first one is exactly what I said. If you're going to succeed and you're feeling depressed, frustrated, overwhelmed, stressed, fearful, whatever, you got to feed your mind. Every single day, you got to feed and strengthen your mind. And you can't hope that a good idea is going to interrupt you. Great ideas don't interrupt you. They got to be pursued. And I know you know that, or you wouldn't be part of this course. You came for this because you were one of those people looking for answers and you're looking for self-education. But it's one thing to do it every once in a while. It's another to do it as a system for the rest of your life, because habits are what create it. It's not what you do once in a while that matters. It's what you do every day. And that's what shapes your character. That's what shapes, your psychology. And Jim Rohn explained it to me this way when I went to a seminar the first time, 17 years old. And he didn't just say it to me, he said it to the whole group. And then when I got to know him later, he would always repeat this and give you the same advice because it was so sound. He said leaders are readers, but he used to say, he'd ask this question. He'd ask it in the audience, and then he'd ask me personally, like I never heard it before. And he'd say things like, he'd say, listen, he said, what if in life you don't protect your mind? What if you look at life, let's say you had a cup of coffee, and let's say your worst enemy puts sugar in your coffee. He goes, what happens if you drink that coffee? I said, well, you have sweet coffee. What if what if your best friend or a family member by accident drops 1 drop of strychnine in your coffee? What's going to happen? I said, you'd be dead. He goes, that's right. So remember, life is both sugar and strychnine, and watch your coffee. And I just laughed. He goes, here's what I mean. Every day, stand guard at the door of your mind, because what's getting in there is shaping you. And he said, don't just stand guard at it. Like, notice what's going in and who's delivering it, because people have a positive intent and they can limit you. He said, do something proactive. He'd say to me, again, every day, read 30 minutes a day. Miss a meal. Don't miss reading 30 minutes a day. And he used to say, read something that'll challenge you. Read something that's going to make you grow. Read something that's going to either give you a philosophy that'll guide your life so you're more fulfilled, or a strategy that makes you more successful. Don't just read random stuff. He said, you can do that too, but this 30 minutes is for your growth. Because he always used to say, look, a person's income will never far exceed their personal development. Like, you're not going to be able to build a business where your marketing to superior people if you're inferior in your own growth. And he said, and everyone starts somewhere, but if you do it daily, you cannot believe the advantages that you'll have. You know, you look at somebody like Bill Gates, or you look at somebody like Warren Buffett. Warren Buffett reads, I remember the other day, I think it's 2 hours every single day, still in his 80s. And he's been doing that for decade after decade. That's why he has such a base of knowledge and skill and ability that he can do so many things with the wealthiest man in the world and having a damn good time doing it. You know, I think I shared this with you guys before. It's like Jim Rohn used to tell me, it's like we're all equal as spirits as souls, but we're not equal in the marketplace. What makes us superior in the marketplace, again, is if you can find a way to add more value. But you can't do that if you're not constantly growing. Because I remember Pat Riley's a dear friend of mine. He used to be a coach of the Lakers, and then, of course, in New York. And then he moved down to Miami and became an owner and a coach, and just brilliant man. He's got more championship rings than 99% of the people on the planet. And I remember him telling me that, you know, his father taught him early on when he was sloughing off. He said, while you're busy sloughing off, someone else is practicing. Someone else is getting better. And one day they will meet you and defeat you. Told this was like 12. It changed his psychology. He became one of those driven people you could know. But you got to feed and strengthen the mind every day. And so that's the first thing I did. I got out of my little room. I don't remember how much at the time, like $19, $20 to my name at this point. I took buses since I didn't have a car. And I went from where I was living, this place called Glendora, California, a place east of LA, to this place called Claremont. And I don't remember the exact time, but it was, you know, like almost a 40-minute bus ride, if I remember right. And I went to this, because I'd been there once. I've been to this bookstore, and it was like a, you know, success spiritual bookstore. It had all these different books. And I was like, I got to feed my mind. And so I went in and I thought, I can go to the library, I'll do that too, but I need to buy a book so I'm vested at a different level. So I had to find the right book. I remember going through all these books. There were all so many good books. And I'd already read Think and Grow Rich before that, Napoleon Hill's book. And I saw this book called The Magic of Believing by Claude M. Bristol. And it talked about the size of your thinking in terms of the size and quality of your life. And that I needed to really train my brain to have certainty, to believe. And it's such a core skill for me to this day. This all happened when I was 17. I took that book, rode the bus back. I was feeding my mind with this. And I started doing everything it talked about in the book. And it was really just training your brain for certainty, training your brain to believe, to know, because our beliefs create and our beliefs destroy. The wrong belief will destroy your life. Oh, it's not worth it. Who gives a damn? And the right belief, I will find the effing way. It'll be worth it. Those beliefs can change your whole life because they can get you to act different, feel different, be different, produce a different result. And I remember one of the things he talked about is, you know, if you're feeling depressed or something else, put posters on the wall or take your goals and put them on your mirror in soap and stare through it. So in that little laundry room, literally, I used the soap on the mirror where you wash things out. And I wrote, you know, all these different things. I wrote, only a loser is depressed, because I was so depressed, but I knew I wasn't a loser. And it was like something about that, just seeing it, looking in my own eyes and seeing it, and the goals I was going to achieve. And I'm telling you, it transformed me. I started to put together a plan. I stopped being depressed. I started constantly conditioning my mind. And every day I began to read. I didn't have the money then, so I'd go to the library. That's how old I am. It wasn't an internet where you could go on and do all these things for free on YouTube or get all these books you download. But I've done it ever since. And as the time went by, I started using audios because, as you know, you can do what I call net time, no extra time. You can listen to an audiobook while you're driving in your car, while you're working out, right? While you're cleaning your house. So you don't have an excuse to say, oh, I don't have time for this. It's using net time, no extra time. So that's number one. And if you're not doing that, it's the first thing I would do. Feed your mind every day. Something's going to inspire you. Something's going to give you new skills, strategy. I wrote a lot of autobiographies because my life was so painful and I was, you know, feeling my pity pot. But then I start reading some of the most brilliant men and women in the world and what their real stories are and all the shit they went through. Pardon my French. I don't think shit's French, but you get the idea. It was just like, it was horrific what they went through. And I started realizing, hey, my past does not equal my future. My biography is not my destiny. But I didn't get that by someone telling me. I got it by the experiences. Plus, if you read a book, especially a book the author themselves wrote, like an autobiography, as you read their thoughts, you think their thoughts. You begin to think like these great people. And so for me, it's been one of the most valuable tools in my life, still used to this day, and I encourage you to do the same. I even went down, I remember I used to take the buses down to Los Angeles. It was, you know, again, maybe an hour and a half, 2 hours, sometimes 2.5 hours spent on the buses, drive to this little place called Night Education, K-N-I-G-H-T, and like with a sword. And there was this man there named Mario. He was a Jewish man who was just so passionate about getting the best speakers in the world and their ideas and insights. And this is when they still had they had albums in those days, you know, the new 8-tracks. They had the new breakthrough, which was cassettes. And I used to save up like $300 is what it would cost. I'm making $40 a week to buy 6 cassette tapes with 6 workbooks on a particular subject to condition my mind. I'd save this money up, I'd drive all the way down, or I'd get it, because I invested so much, man. I listened to that stuff over and over again. And I even interviewed him, years and years later, maybe 20 years later, and I've been successful and so forth. And I wanted people to know, like, my story's true. And he told the story. He goes, this little fat kid, because, I was 5'1", when this all started, right? And this little kid comes in, and he's so on fire, with energy, and wants to do this. But he also told a story I forgot, which is I bounced a check to him. But he said, but Tony, to his credit, as soon as it bounced, he called me before I called him and said, I screwed up, I didn't realize. And I came down to give him the tapes. He's like, no, you keep them. I said, no, you keep them, because I don't want to get them until I paid for them, so I know I've earned it. That's how strongly I felt about it. And it's true. That's why I'm here today. So that's number 1. Number 2, if you're really going to be successful, you got to feed and strengthen your body every day. See, you can't separate the mind and body. You can read all kinds of things and feed your mind, but if your body's weak, it's hard to have a strong mind. You know what I mean? It's like, you got to do something each day. It can be brief. It could be even 5 or 10 minutes. It doesn't have to be 2 hours of a workout, but you got to do something that makes you feel strong. And so that could be just a really intense walk. That could be lifting some weights for 10 minutes. It could be, I like to do Tabata sometimes. You 20 seconds full till 10 seconds off. There's a variety of patterns like that. But you only do 4 minutes of work, and science shows you get a better workout than if you did 30 minutes. Now you got to do it warm up properly. That's my disclaimer, or you can pull some muscles. But the point is, you want to do something strong. And many of you know that I use cold plunges throughout my homes. I've mentioned it before, but I do it to train my brain and body both. When you jump in that freezing cold water, 56 degrees or 42 degrees often in Sun Valley, when I walk through the snow, go into the river in the wintertime, it's a whole new world. And there's never a time, I've told people this a million times, there's never a time I want to jump in that water, but I don't negotiate with myself. I train myself. When I say go, we go. Right? I don't say, well, maybe in a few minutes when I'm ready, or maybe tomorrow. And by developing that habit of the mind and the body, I can get myself to do almost anything. It's one of the reasons I have the privilege to be here with you. But these abilities, these skills, like, I built this Tony Robbins guy. He's me, but I built him by conditioning him to be his best, with my brain being conditioned and my body being conditioned. Does that make sense? And so when I jump in that water, man, every organ of the body, the lymph flows, and you get out of it, and it's painful when you get in, but you get out of it, feel like $1 million. And so it's that discipline. And again, I can do that in 2 minutes, and I have a change. Or like I said, go lift weights. When you run hard or push hard, all that blood goes to your body, and you feel strong inside, and you feel mentally strong. So you know that fear and courage are both in the body, right? I mean, if you're really fearful, where do you feel it? Like, really, if you've been really scared something horrible is going to happen, it's like you feel it in your throat, you feel it in your gut. It's physical. So is courage. It's physical. It's that strength. It's that ability. So it doesn't have to be 2 hours. It can be 3 to 5 minutes, but you need something to snap yourself into a strong physical state. And I encourage you to do something at least 3 days a week where you really build physical strength. So if we feed our mind every day, just 30 minutes, everybody's got 30 minutes somewhere. You can do it in that time. If we take care of our body, we strengthen it, you're going to have momentum. Now you really need to find yourself a great role model, because we all need to know that what we dream about is real. If someone else can do it, you and I can do it as well. Now, you can say, oh, they have all the advantages. We can make up all those stories, but when you really study the most successful people on earth, they've had so many challenges. The only difference for them is they push through. They have that mental, emotional, physical toughness. They push through. And they had something compelling that they're going after. So I grew up really poor financially. And one of the reasons, most of you know, I feed 100 million meals a year in the United States. We're hitting 500 million meals as I speak in the next couple of weeks this year. I'm very proud of it. In 5 years, we're going to feed 1 billion people over those 10 years, 1 billion meals. But one of the reasons I do that is because I suffered, didn't have it. And so I noticed that, I went to 4 fathers, and the one common denominator when I was a kid was they were always arguing about money. It wasn't about excess capital, right? It was about, we don't have any, we don't have money for food. And so part of that suffering made me want to help other people, thank God, and it's governed my life in such beautiful ways. But early on I thought, it's all the problems in relationships are about money. It's all about money. It isn't. As an adult today, I can look back and see that my parents, if they had plenty of money, they would have thought about something else. It was just the nature of how their values were mixed in their chemistry and their own personal emotional patterns. And they were good people, but they just weren't the right chemistry for each other. And they did let money get in the way. They let money be a trigger for arguments and fights and scarcity. So early on, I was like, I need to make sure that in my life, my future family does not suffer like I did. I don't want anybody to suffer. I got to take care of my family and hopefully do well enough I can take care of other people too. And fortunately, that's all come together. But one of the first ways I did that, I was like, how am I going to do this? I don't know anybody that's made a lot of money. I don't know anybody that's wealthy or abundant even. I don't know anybody that has plenty of cash. I mean, it's like, how am I going to do this? So I thought, okay, let me find a role model. I'm reading these books. Let me find a role model of someone who has started with nothing like me, dirt poor. And then let's find out what they did. You know, I remember Jim Rohn saying success leaves clues. So let me find someone who's been successful over time, who started with nothing like me, and let's see if there's a pattern there. And if they've been able to succeed for decades, starting with nothing, they must have something going on. And instead of saying they're lucky, maybe I should look and see what do they do different than I'm doing. So I looked for a role model. And I encourage people to get multiple role models, by the way. Couple of them to learn from, because no one person is perfect. And if you're expecting someone perfect, I'm not perfect, Dean's not perfect, you're not perfect, nobody's perfect. We all make mistakes, we all screw up. That's part of being human. So if you have this they got to be perfect or you're not going to follow me, you're just being silly. I like to learn what they're good at. Some people are good at finance, some people are good with their kids, some people are good emotionally, some people are good at being happy, some people are good in business. But at that time I thought money's the answer. And so I found Sir John Templeton. And Sir John Templeton comes from Tennessee. He was no sir to start with. He was not a British citizen, dirt poor, grew up I think he was born in 1912, so he came of age in the Depression, and grew up in a really tough time. And I thought, if a guy could grow up that way and become the first investment billionaire, I gotta know what he did. I don't know if I'll ever be a billionaire, but I want to be abundant. And so I started reading every book he had, and then eventually I had the privilege of meeting him when I was like 31 and interviewing him. And then I was one of the last people to interview him before he died. I think it was 2008, if I remember right. And became friends. And he was just a brilliant man, but his story's interesting. He's such a great role model because his parents taught him, when he was dirt poor, to save 50% of everything he earned. I mean, you tell people that today, they go, you're insane, it can't be done, everything costs much, but it was just a discipline. And by having that simple discipline, he learned something interesting. He had money when things were not going well. And that's what his parents wanted to show him how to do, because when things go well, what do people want for their house? If the stock market is going crazy, how much do they want? What it's worth, more or less. If it's a house and the market's going great, if the market's going great, do you want more than it's worth? What it's worth or less? They want more than it's worth. But when things crash, in fact, Sir John Templeton came up with a principle, and I learned it from him by just studying his work. He said, you make your most money in times of maximum pessimism. When people think it's all ending, it's blood in the streets, the world is coming to an end, that's when things are on sale. And he said, no season is forever. Winter's coming, it always is coming. So spring, so summer, and they follow a sequence. And he goes, no sequence lasts forever. Like war and all these things don't last forever. So because he had this belief and he had a little cash, when World War II broke out, when Hitler invaded Poland, the day they did that, I'm too young and you're probably too young to have any history other than what we've watched on movies or television, but it didn't look like the Americans were going to win. It didn't look like the free world was going to stay there. Hitler was blitzkrieging places. And the stock market just crashed in the United States. And the day that it went through these crashes, he took $10,000, half of which he'd saved, half of which he borrowed. And he bought every stock he could find that he thought was valuable that was worth less than $1. It dropped to less than $1. And he said, it's not going to stay this way forever. Some of these companies could go bankrupt, but I don't think they're going to. War's not forever. It's going to turn around, and when it does, it's going to explode. And I'm buying things so cheap, I'll never get them this cheap again. And so he had this courage. He had this mindset. And I learned from him. And I saw what he did. That little investment he made eventually made him a multi-billionaire, first international billionaire by investing, starting with nothing from scratch. And so what I learned from him was the worst times could be your best times. Oh my God, what a great belief that's helped me. Because when I first started my business, again, I'm older than most of you. I'm 60 now, about to be. And I can remember, 1977, 78, when interest rates were 18%. You could put your money in the bank and get 16% returns, but if you had no money, trying to borrow money, I borrowed money for a house when I turned, 18, I was legal. I bought a little triplex, and it was 18% interest. Imagine if it was 18% interest today, people would be on the White House lawn lynching the President of the United States, or the Fed, that kind of thing, But that's what it was in those days. And you have this massive, what they called inflation and stagflation. Everything was messed up. It was winter. It was one of the worst times. But if you do well in the worst times, then when things get good, you do even better. It makes you strong. So that role model is just one example for me. John Grinder was the founder of NLP, was a role model for me. I saw him make these changes in people that looked like magic, and instead of saying he's a magician, I want to know what's behind that magic. How can I do the same thing? So if you find people that have actually lived it, it's the difference between learning someone who's a great teacher and they can tell you stuff versus someone that's actually done it. So find yourself a role model that'll give you the certainty that it can be done, and they'll give you a pathway to power. They'll give you the shortcut. Fourth key to overcoming the fear and getting the result that you really want. You really need, well, how can I frame this for you? I'll tell you a story first. So I get this phone call years ago. I won't tell you the whole story, keep it simple, but as a man who became a dear friend of mine, his name is Peter Guber. And Peter and I are now partners. We own the LAFC football club and helped build the stadium together. And he's a genius. I mean, total genius. He has 52 Academy Award nominations. He was the chairman of Sony and Columbia and TriStar Movies. Has his own, Mandalay Entertainment now. But he owns the Golden State Warriors in his partnership. He owns the LA Dodgers, LAFC. We have the #1 esports team in the world as well. So it's just like, he's just genius. And I've learned so much from him. He's 18 years my senior. And I can remember, he invited me one time to come on a trip with him. He goes, look, we got this group of guys. And he said, they're all like 18, 20 years your senior, Tony, but you've added so much value to my life. And he felt like I really helped him make some cool changes through one of my programs, and then we became friends. And he said, I think you should come. And I told the other guys how great you are. And they invited you to come on this one trip. And we do this like twice a year, sometimes 3 times a year. We go on these amazing trips because really successful people, they don't usually take care of themselves. They're so busy. They don't design something. So we design these cool trips. Each one of us runs one. We blow each other away with the cool trips. But the best part of the trips are the conversations we have with all these brilliant people. And they're all the best in the world at what they do. The richest man in Canada, Pat Riley, was one of those people, his greatest coach, alive at that point. And he went through the list. And so I remember he invited me to go on this trip, and it sounded like a cool trip. They offered a couple trips. One of them was, we're going to fly in private Gulfstreams, and we're going to fly to Vietnam, and then we're going to go to Cambodia, and then we're going to go to China, and we're going to do this thing at the Great Wall, and we'll ride bikes through Vietnam. And it sounded like a cool trip, but at this point, I'm a business operator. Like, I have to be there every moment. I'm not a business owner. I don't even know what that is. And I'm stressed out trying to do everything all myself at once. And so he says, you want to come? And I was like, well, of course. I said, but I know the dates, and I'm just curious. I said, how many days this going to be? And he goes, I don't know, 7, 8, 9, 10, 12, maybe 15 days. I'm like, oh my God, 7 days with my business in my head. I'm like, I can't do that. And he goes, and I said, well, what do you think the cost? He goes, it doesn't matter. We just share the cost. But I'm starting to add in my head a couple Gulfstreams, flying 30, 40 hours around the earth. And even then I had some idea what those things cost. He goes, I don't know, Tony, maybe, I don't know. I don't remember what the exact number was, $20,000, $30,000, $30,000, right? I don't show him that. I'm on the phone. And I'm like, well, let me check my schedule. There's this long pause. He goes, did I just hear you right? I invited you to go on a trip with 8, 9, maybe 10 of the smartest people in the world in business and finance, some of the greatest philanthropists, some of the geniuses in sports, where you got to spend 7, 10 days picking their brains, being with them, being one of them, and you're going to check your schedule? I said, no. I said, I'm going to put it on my schedule. He goes, good. I'm like, holy shit. So I hang up the phone. Now I'm committed, and I'm like freaking out. Oh my God, this many days and $20,000, $30,000. And I was like Thorazine March inside my body. I was like freaking out. And so finally the day comes, and I couldn't get out of it. Thank God I couldn't get out of it. And I remember I got on the plane, and there was, only so many seats, and they weren't used to me being there, and they had a certain number of beds, and I forget what the flight was, like 15 hours, to go from Los Angeles to go out, I think it was Cambodia or Vietnam was the first stop. And I was like, in those days, I wouldn't even take an aspirin, and they were all popping, what is that sleep drug, a little pill, and they're popping one of those to go to sleep. And I'm like, no, I don't do that. And I'm like, well, we'll switch beds. I was like, no, this is you guys' plane. I said, listen, I got a lot of work to do. They got 16 hours of the work. And I'm like, yeah, no, I'm busy. So they all knocked themselves out. I'm sitting there for 15 hours like, oh my God, 10 days and $30,000. And I'm just stressed the entire time. We get on the trip, and it's a beautiful trip, and I'm still stressed out. Because also I felt like I didn't belong there, you know what I mean? Like they're way above where I am, and I don't belong here. What's going on? And so long story short, here's the principle I got out of it. So about, 3 days, 4 days into the trip, we've been to Cambodia, Vietnam, and I sit down, and the person sits next to me is the richest man in Canada. At the time, his name was Jerry, and I'm sitting there, and I'm reading a physical newspaper, and I'm, going, he's beside me, and I'm feeling uncomfortable, like, I'm not his peer. What am I doing? I'm sitting next to him, and all of a sudden he kind of smacks my paper with his hand. And I go look down, and he goes, you piss me off. piss you off. I think, oh, great. That's 7 to 10 days, $30,000. I pissed off the richest guy in the trip. What's going on? Oh, what do you mean? He goes, everywhere we go. He goes, you're stopped there. They don't even speak English. Tony, love Tony. Oh, Tony changed life. Oh, Tony. He goes, they can barely even speak English. And they're all hugging you and telling you you changed life. He goes, you know how rich I am? Do you know how many companies I have? You know what I built? You know how many people I employ? You know how many people have college educations because their kids work with me and they can afford that? No one's ever looked me in the face and said, you changed my life. And for a moment, I was like, whoa. And he goes, and he looked at me and he's really intense. He goes, you pissed me off. And then he smiled. I thought, oh, he's jerking my chain so well. And he looked at me and I could almost cry. It was so emotional. He just looked at me and goes, Tony, I feel like maybe you think you don't belong on this trip. He said, but he goes, you're selling yourself short. He goes, I'm 20 years your senior. He goes, you know where I was at your age? I think I was 30 or 31, something like that. He goes, I made $1 million and lost it. I had nothing. He goes, look at you. You've already got a little island. You got this, you got that. He goes, but more importantly, people all over the world love you. You have a mission. He goes, you belong here. It was incredible. It touched my heart. And then he said, tell me what your goals are. Tell me what you want to achieve. And I'm getting to the principle now from this. I told him, well, as a kid growing up, I wanted to change the world, help the difference. I thought someday I'll run for president of the United States. So I backed that up. I should be a senator. Before that, a congressman. Before that, a state senator. And before that, I'm in high school. I should run for student body president. I'm not popular, but I think I could win if I run it like a real campaign, find out what people really need, deliver it. And so I did that. Proved myself I could do that. I'm going to go through these different stages. And he laughed and he said, well, I'm sure you could do that. He said, you're sincere. You want to make a difference. He goes, but that'd take a lot of money. A lot more than you got. I said, because I want to run it on my own campaign. I want to be beholden to people. And he goes, well, that's like billions. That's a different game. And I said, I understand that. He goes, well, you could do anything. He goes, I don't know if you're made for that. He goes, yeah, you seem like you're better outside that system. But he said, if you want to do that, he said, let me ask you a question. He goes, how many investment bankers do you know? I said, no, I don't know. Half dozen. He goes, how many spend time with? I said, none. Because that's a big mistake. He said, because if you put yourself in that environment over and over again, he said, someone's going to want to do business with you. They're going to come up with a deal. I said, well, I don't know where I want to go. I don't know how to add value. And I don't like to go have meetings. He goes, listen to me. Here's a principle that made me wealthy. And here's the principle I want you to understand. Proximity is power. Proximity is power. So I listened for a moment. I go, I think I know what that means. What do you mean? He goes, Tony, look, I'll give you an example. He goes, look, you're in how many movies? And at that point, I was in 20 movies where people put me in, movies and TV where, they put me in like a commercial with me or something. And I didn't even ask to do it. It was before Shallow Hal. And he said, how'd you get all those movies? I said, I don't know. I was just like, I'm around these people. Because that's right. You have so many people in that industry that are your fans, directors, heads of studios, right? Certain actors. He goes, if you want to make a movie right now, and this is before Shallow Hal, he goes, all you have to do is come up with a good concept. If it's a strong enough concept, you know all the right people, you're in proximity. They do it with you. Because they want to. They're thinking about you without you even trying. They're doing it. But if you want to make a deal at IBM, he goes, you're not even at IBM. I'm not saying you couldn't do it, but it'd be really hard. He said Bill Gates' family was involved with that board. That's how those deals came about. He had proximity, brilliance, and everything else, but proximity is so powerful. You get more done with proximity than almost anything else, because you need to go meet with these different financial leaders, these different investment bankers on a regular basis and go just have lunch with them. I go, but I don't know what I want. I don't have a plan to help. You don't need a plan. He goes, they're going to want to talk to you. I go, he goes, trust me, they will. But get in proximity and you do it long enough, someone's going to come up with a deal. So we cut to the chase in the story. He goes, I'm going to check up on you. And they invited me to part of the group. So I go the next, I go out and I flew to New York on a fairly regular basis, and I go set these meetings up, and they were good, but nothing really came out of them. And I don't know, it was 3, 4, 5 months later, I go to this meeting. He goes, hey, how you doing on your proximity plan? Who have you seen? I've talked to these 7 people. 7? He goes, what happened to massive action? He just really beat me up on it. So then I was with this woman at the time. She's like, what are you doing? Waste your time doing these trips in New York. I do it, and I do it. It went on for, 2.5, 3 years. One day I get a phone call that led to a deal that made $50 million. I never made $50 million in my entire life. It was a way that I could turn a business around, and I got a piece of the stock, and it went crazy. And then that led to a business that made me $400 million the day the company went public. That was the value of my stock. Now, I didn't stay there, but that's what it went to. And so I learned there's nothing like proximity. I also learned something else. If you get around people that are better than you, it feels uncomfortable, but it makes you grow. Like if you want to play tennis and you play against somebody you're better than, your game's going down. Even if I'm not trying, you're just not being challenged enough. You get around Serena Williams and you're not in her game, just to stay on the court, baby, your skills are going to grow. And so I made it a principle to push myself to be in environments around people where I could serve them. I don't care if I had to be in the early days a janitor to them, so I could learn from them. I want to be in proximity with them. Think about, what do you really want? And who are the people that can accelerate that? How can you get in proximity? How can you serve them? How can you give them? What can you do for them that they value so that you can be in an environment where you learn? Proximity is amazing. And now I have the same group of people are now my friends, and I'm one of them. I'm not somebody who doesn't belong there. It's been decades now of that experience, and it's been one of the most valuable lessons of my life. And then finally, I want to give you a fifth one. Fifth one would be, it's all about massive action. Look, if you take care of your mind and you're feeding it daily, strengthening it, and you're feeding, strengthening, pushing your body, and you've got a great role model that helps you to start to put together a good plan, and you got, proximity with people that can accelerate, then it's really just about massive action, trying what works, and if it doesn't work, changing until you get there. I always say, how long do you give your average child to learn how to walk before you cut them off and say, you're not a walker? You go, you crazy? My kid's going to keep trying until they get there. Well, if we keep changing our approach and we learn from the best, we can get anywhere we want to go. It just takes that massive action and constant change. Most people don't even take massive action, and the few that do often do the same thing over and over again. It doesn't work. So you got to keep shifting. And the last one for you, if there's going to be a sixth one, is always give much more than you expect to receive. If you do that, you'll never have to worry about success in your life. Because nobody wants to be a taker. Even if you do take and you get something you want and you've been a taker, you haven't added the value, you won't feel good about it. You feel good for a few minutes, but not the long term. Because, Jim Rohn used to teach me, what you get does not make you happy. What you become makes you very happy or very sad.